Nigerian authorities warn citizens to stop eating bushmeat amid the spreading monkeypox disease. The newly graduated medicine and health UDT students have begun their medical professions. Southeast Asian countries have been adversely affected by the prevailing economic crisis. Well, these and more coming ahead on The World Today. Many thanks for joining us. This is Africa TV, and we are coming to live from our studios in Banjul. And let's look at the news in detail. Now, as countries continue to widen their surveillance and fight against the monkeypox disease, Nigerian authorities have warned citizens to stop eating bushmeat. But not everyone is heeding to the call. Some bushmeat sellers and consumers have no reservation about eating bushmeat. Nigeria is among several African countries that reported monkeypox disease in 2022, leaving officials worried about its circulation. Here's more details of that in this report.
51-year-old Umar Aliyu has been in the bushmeat business for nearly 20 years. Despite the trade and consumption being linked to diseases, his sales haven't been affected.
We've sold bushmeat here for years, and none of my customers have complained about any sickness. It's very healthy and a good alternative to red meat.
The consumption of bushmeat in Nigeria dates back many decades. Antelope, porcupine, and alligator are some of the favorites. According to US-based environmental organization WildAid, 70% of Nigerians have consumed bushmeat at some point in their lives. It says taste and flavor are significant factors influencing bushmeat consumption in the country. The World Health Organization says nearly 80% of emerging infectious diseases like Ebola, HIV, and monkeypox in the last 10 years have been linked to the wild or bushmeat trade. But some of the consumers we spoke to don't have concerns.
I've been eating bushmeat now for the past 5 years. Me and my children and my family, and we are very okay.
As I'm even telling you now, I have it stocked in my fridge. I don't eat cow meat since 2019 up to date. And I find that it's very good to the health, to my health.
Since the first outbreak of monkeypox in 2017, Nigeria has had periodic episodes of the disease. In 2022, more than 30 cases were confirmed, and the government is now warning Nigerians to stop eating bushmeat as it moves to curb the spread of the disease.
Domestic and wild animals transmit diseases to man. Monkeypox, we are looking at animals that are not properly prepared. Because when these animals are infected by the virus, the hunter may not know. You come in contact with that and you bring it home. Even getting in touch with it alone is enough to let this virus come onto you. Particularly, if you have abrasion of the skin, it can penetrate through that and then cause havoc.
But experts say that beyond such warnings, there's need to have regulatory systems in place to ensure that people at the grassroots level are sensitized on how bushmeat should be handled from the wild to the plate.
That the World Health Focal person has to be part of the active surveillance, whereas he knows where they are selling bushmeat and they are eating it in bukas and restaurants. So it's for him to go and inspect. And there should be a team.
Last month, Nigeria's Center for Disease Control activated a monkeypox emergency operations center to monitor and assess the risks of the outbreak.
Nigerian authorities there are advising citizens to stop eating bushmeat amid the spreading monkeypox disease. Elsewhere in the continent, Egyptian authorities have revealed plans to enhance the country's auto industry with a view to reviving this sector from the effects of the global economic crisis. Local auto producers have embraced the government decision, saying the move will entice foreign investors and boost local production. Some stakeholders are calling for more support to widen the industry beyond the North African nation. Here's more details of that in this report.
Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has presided over a major agreement to establish a specialized industrial zone for the auto industry overlooking the Suez Canal area. In the first phase, the zone will have the capacity to manufacture 75,000 vehicles annually, in addition to spare parts, accessories, and feeder plants. It's a culmination of the strategy for localizing the auto industry that was recently unveiled by the cabinet. The automobile market has been suffering from the effects of the recent global instabilities and component shortages that have nearly paralyzed production and supply of vehicles. Officials in Egypt want to reduce dependence on imports.
The most important aspects focus on the need to increase the availability of local components. Currently, incentives are given only to investors who use 45% of local components in the vehicle. The new strategy provides incentives for all investors, but these incentives are increased as local components increase. If the factory produces 10% local components, it receives certain facilities. If 20%, then more facilities. The same with 30%, 40% and more. Producers of electric cars will be given extra incentives as well as to encourage production of clean energy vehicles.
Amr Suleiman, who locally produces and assembles different brands, including China's BYD vehicles, commends the strategy.
It has four main benefits. It creates a localized industry. It increases the rate of local production. The third benefit is that it offers incentives to encourage new foreign investments that will pour in billions. And fourth is that it expands the production and availability of clean energy-run vehicles like electric cars and natural gas-powered engines.
Although the strategy has been welcomed by producers, some, however, stress that more is needed to attract the big players to the North African country.
We have to see what neighboring countries did to attract investments and now produce 500,000 cars and more. They offer more incentives than even this new strategy which we just announced. For instance, they provide 5-year tax exemptions followed by another 20 years at only 8% tax. It makes a big difference with huge investors who pump billions of dollars, create many jobs and open the door for a lot of feeder industries.
The localization strategy targets local components to account for over 60% of each vehicle and to have the first fully produced Egyptian electric car by 2030.
And a report that is coming from the Egyptian capital, Cairo, and from the northern part of the continent. Let's return to the western part because Ghanaian authorities are intensifying efforts to curtail the new resurgence of the coronavirus cases in the West African nation. Now, the country's health service has begun an inoculation campaign as infections continue to surge, leaving health experts worried about the situation. In March, President Addo lifted several COVID-19 measures, including the wearing of face masks, but health authorities are calling for its reinstatement. Let's have more details of that in this report.
With a looming fifth wave starting to grip Ghana, there is an all-out push to get people vaccinated.
Those abroad, they are doing it, and they have taken 1, 2, 3, and they brought it to us to take it out. Why don't I admit myself and then come and then take it to boost my health and my life?
Ghana's health service says the country is recording more than 200 new COVID-19 infections daily, and hospitals are beginning to fill up.
If we get to a point where deaths are increasing, ICU admission is increasing, then government may be forced to reintroduce some restrictions, and that will affect the economy and all. Vis-a-vis the current economic conditions we find ourselves, we don't want that kind of thing.
The wearing of face masks was one of the key measures introduced to curb the spread of COVID-19 infections. But in March, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo lifted most of the COVID-19 restrictions, including the mandatory wearing of face masks. It was because the country's infections had dropped significantly.
While COVID-19 cases have begun to surge in Ghana, health experts want the government to bring back mask mandates in public places. They believe it could help reduce the spread of infections.
Health experts also want the government to step up awareness campaigns to get more people inoculated.
National Immunization Day campaigns that we do, we need to do more of those and take the vaccine to the people. Meet them at the place where we find them, in the sports stadium when people go for their games. Currently, if you are not vaccinated, you're not supposed to take part in a lot of activities. But these are not being enforced. If they are enforced, then people will be forced to take the vaccine. At the personal level, I think people should go back to the use of the face masks and observe all the COVID-19 etiquette.
So far, Ghana has fully vaccinated nearly 23% of its 32 million population. Out of these, about 3% have received a booster shot.
Now, coming back home, the National Pharmaceutical Service, with support from partners and stakeholders, on Tuesday validated the national medicine policy at the day workshop held at the Karaba Beach Hotel. The workshop was convened to review and ensure the document is people-centered to cater for the needs of patients. Let's have more details of that in this report by Moses Mende.
The validation of the National Medicines Policy 2022 to 2025 is being carried out through the joint knowledge and experience of the Health Ministry, experts, and stakeholders. It is said to be in use after the validation workshop. The policy seeks to boost the availability of essential medicines to the population at affordable prices and ensure continuous education and professional training for pharmaceutical staff. It also aims to deliver adequate legislation leading to effective regulation of pharmaceuticals and many more. Mr. Babanding Sabali, Director of National Pharmaceutical Service, in his opening remark described the progress as a milestone in the development of the health sector and underscored that accessible health cannot be achieved in the absence of essential medicines.
However, access to health cannot be fulfilled without availability of essential medicines. Therefore, this statement affirms that quality healthcare delivery is synonymous to optimal functioning of pharmaceutical sector. A weak pharmaceutical sector cannot support quality health delivery system. According to WHO, access to medical products and technology is one of the 6 building blocks of health system.
He noted that the second largest spending of the public health budget is on medicines, medical products, and vaccines, and added that for quality health delivery to be attained, emphasis on ensuring medicines and its supply security in the country must be projected. Dr. Amadou Samate, Minister of Health, said the policy is to map out a new direction for the health sector development and will serve as a basis for driving the sector's priorities and plans.
The policy has attempted in its best ability to capture the national vision as set in the National Health Plan and the National Development Plan, and in line with the Global Health Vision. This document has a lot of policy reorientation and innovative strategies that could lead the country in the aspirations of the government. The policy will provide a new direction for the health sector development. It will also serve as a basis for driving health sector priorities and planning as a good resource allocation process, and all other related pharmaceutical policies will be anchored on this.
He revealed that the pharmaceutical services hopes for a reformation within the next 5 years to make the central medical stores a public enterprise and to avail the CMS mandate and autonomy to conduct many of its activities, thereby improving the availability of essential medicine. Dr. Desta Tiruni, World Health Organization representative, said underfinancing of medicines and the supply chain system, coupled with other factors, has affected the availability of medicines and highlighted the ambitions of the policy.
So it's a time of change. This policy was developed in the wake of the 4 years of the COVID pandemic. Across the world, the epidemic has exposed the gaps in the health systems. Based on the lessons learned and the quickly shifting epidemiological transition, this policy has is forward-looking solutions for Gambia's health sector. It intends to create more resilient systems that can better cope with epidemics and the growing and more resilient epidemics and the growing needs of the Gambia.
The Gambia has been grappling with a broken health system as the gap between expected and actual performance against targets remain large. The most important contributing factor to this gap is said to be insufficient resources. Public hospitals are often devoid of medicines, while exorbitant drugs and treatment in private health clinics continue to frustrate ordinary Gambians. Moses Mendy, iAfrica News.
We'll bring you more health-related news in a moment, but for now, from that report, we take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you're watching the World Today News Bulletin on Africa TV, and now to the rest of the stories. Now, the increase in global food insecurity triggered by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukrainian conflict is railing the economy of many countries in the Asian continent. Now, Southeast Asian nations are among the hardest hit as vulnerable families face malnutrition and amid acute prevalent conditions. Now, some of the affected countries are initiating measures to address this situation, but not everyone is convinced. Here's more details of that in this report.
Visit a Southeast Asian market, and it's hard to imagine that food security could be a problem. But the way the pandemic fractured supply chains and the Ukraine crisis is driving up food prices tells a different story.
For a country like the Philippines, on average, they spend more than 30%, close to 40% of their income on food. So they are extremely vulnerable to price shocks.
It's the same for lower income families, even in the more developed countries such as Malaysia. In many parts of ASEAN, there are high levels of malnutrition and stunted growth in kids. And it's likely to worsen in the face of soaring food prices.
It's very prevalent in the lower income group because of the quality of food that they consume. You consume a lot of starch, which is cheap. It's also subsidized. It's available, it's cheap, it's filling, but it's not very nutritious.
Smallholders produce much of Southeast Asia's agricultural output, which tends to be inefficient. There's also a lack of crop diversity.
Both the impacts of the pandemic and the current rise in food prices, these are very big wake-up calls in the region. They clearly show a need to diversify agriculture so that you have more varieties of food available. Not only does this make economic sense, but at the same time, we also have a diverse diet, which is what is required for nutrition.
Some ASEAN countries have recently resorted to food protectionism, with Indonesia temporarily banning the export of palm oil and Malaysia chickens and chicken products. It's the opposite of what analysts say the region should be doing.
Food security situation in our neighboring countries will definitely have an impact on us. So it is of our best interest to not only look at food security from our own perspective, but also from a regional perspective.
In other words, the ASEAN bloc thinking and acting more like the community it aspires to be better prepared for any future food security shocks.
The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent Ukrainian conflict continue to affect many countries around the globe, especially countries in the Asian continent. And finally, before we take leave of you, on our final story now, the University of the Gambia School of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences Wednesday inducted newly graduated medical students into the medical profession. The swearing ceremony was held at the Paradise Suite Hotel. Well, we'll bring you more details of this story in our subsequent news editions. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can, of course, visit our website on africa.tv. But for now, many thanks for the privilege of your company. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.